Okay.
That's your good side.
All right, last week, we left off with verse 1. We got real far, right? And what we're going to do today is we're going to look at verse 2, and I'm going to try to get all the way to 20. We'll see our little technical delay here. May or may not let that happen, but if for those of you that remember, like half of you in here were in the downstairs class when I taught Revelation 21 and the back half of Daniel. And I remember after that very first day, I think every one of you walked out of there like, what just happened? What did he hit us with? And so I was thinking, kind of had two different thoughts that kind of collided here. You know, some teachers bring donuts or coffee, or I figured I would bring y'all a gift.
All right. I like chocolate chip.
So y'all can pass this around after. Y'all want to pass it? Take one, two, pass it around. Come get it if you need it.
I need it now for your bad jokes.
They're laughing. Girl.
Because
I need it now.
I'm gonna not be that mean on the second day.
Oh, you know you're going on the internet, right?
It can't see me this time.
I'll fix that. Right there.
He sent me a screenshot of the last one, and it looked like only him and me were in class. And it looked like I was saying in my brain, burst in flames, burst in flames.
But that's no different than any other time she and I are in the same room. So it's, all right. We looked at kind of how to study. We looked at the background, kind of what's going on in Isaiah's world, because you're going to see him making references to that a lot. But I was telling you last week, get ready for metaphors. If your mind goes literal on this stuff, it will mess you up. He is metaphor, metaphor, metaphor. You get down to verse 9 and 10, he's got two metaphors into one verse. Okay, he just goes metaphor. But what's nice about Isaiah, he's very, very kind to us. A lot of times he defines what the metaphor is. Whereas when you get to the book of Revelation, they're not defined. It's a coded book. You have to have the cipher. Isaiah is the cipher. The Old Testament prophets are the cipher. You cannot know what that book is about. And think about it. Think about in the first century, the faithful. What book did they know best? Was it Acts? Wait, couldn't have been Acts, right? Was it Romans? Hebrews? No, those things didn't exist, right? It was Isaiah. They knew it extremely well. You could get back into the law. Think about a much smaller Bible to have to study. You could get back into the law, and you want to go read Leviticus and all of that stuff. They probably didn't spend a ton of time in there. They weren't priests. Do you get into the prophecies, and especially Isaiah, because they want this Messiah to come. They're extremely familiar with this book, so that when Revelation comes, they don't need to come to my class to understand it. They knew it immediately. They already knew all the metaphors. Verse 1, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. And then verse 2, you get your first metaphor. He says, "Hear, O heavens, give ear, O earth." And you're thinking, is he talking to the sky and the dirt? Which, okay, maybe, but I don't think so. But you don't have to guess what it means. You just go down to verse 9. Somebody read verse 9 and verse 10.
If the Lord of heaven's armies has not spared a few of us, we would have been wiped out like Sodom, destroyed like Gomorrah. Listen to the Lord, you leaders of Sodom. Listen to the law of our God, people of Gomorrah.
So that's a translation thing. It's,
Yeah.
Hear the word of the Lord, ye leaders or ye rulers of Sodom, of Judah and Jerusalem. Hear ye heavens, hear ye rulers. The heavens, when you see this apocalyptic language, when you see heavens and earth, you need to think back to Isaiah, the one that set this up. It's in there a lot more than you think. Our minds just default to literal. Oh, he's talking about the sky and the dirt. That's just natural to us. Isaiah talks in metaphors the whole time. But he's defined it for us. Hear ye rulers of Sodom. We Jews would have been like as unto Sodom, verse 9. Give ear, King James ASV, give ear, ye people. Give ear, O earth, give ear, ye people. The heavens are the ones that light the way. They provide light. These heavenly bodies, your sun, moon, and stars. Think about this for a minute. Your earth, that's the one that the lights are being shown on. These are the citizens, the people of the kingdom. Okay? Genesis. I'll show you a few different instances in the Bible where it's very clear that this is metaphorical. What is going on in Joseph's dream in Genesis 37, 9 through 11? I think he has a couple.
Angels up and down the big stairway.
Nope, not that one.
The other one.
The other one.
All right.
This is the stars bowing down?
The stars.
Yeah.
He says, he goes up to his dad. He's like, hey daddy, I had a dream where the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars were going to bow down and worship me. Right?
The wrong guy.
Wrong guy?
I said I had the wrong guy. I wasn't paying attention.
Do you understand that though? He's saying the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars were going to bow down and worship me. Or maybe not worship, but bow down at his feet or whatever. What is he talking about? Jacob, they knew right away what he was talking about. He says, somebody want to read those verses? Genesis 37, 9 through 11.
Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream you had? Will your mother and I bow, and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind.
It's clear. Sun, moon, and stars, these are the patriarchs, the matriarch, and the leaders of the 12 tribes, well, 11 of the 12 tribes of Israel. In this case, it's just representing the head of this family, I guess, the second in command, the lesser light, and then the stars. In Daniel, somewhere in Daniel 12 maybe, I forget where it is, it calls the teachers. It says in the same verse, it says the teachers would be the stars. Like not Hollywood stars, that's not a thing yet, right? He's saying they would be the lesser lights to shine and lighten the way. What's the ultimate? What's the ultimate one in this family of metaphors? What's the big dog here? The sun. Say more, keep going with that. Sun is correct. But what sun?
How did you spell
Who said it? Who said it? No, it's right in both ways. It's the same answer. Who said Jesus? The Son of righteousness. That is Malachi 4:2. Somebody read that. Malachi 4:2. I will reference that verse 1,000 times. 1,000 as in the one in Revelation, not the literal 1,000.
But for you who fear my name, the S-U-N, Son of
Yes, thank
Righteousness,
you.
will rise with healing in his wings, and you will go free, leaping with joy like calves led out to pasture.
What is that talking about? Is that talking about a really cool sun? A little ball of gas and fire and flames? Or come on, is it talking about Christ? The Son is the Son. The S-O-N is the S-U-N. He is the greater light. And think about Revelation 21. When they're sitting there, he's like, verse 9, verse 10, he's like, hey, come here, let me show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. And then later on down in the 20s, he's like, you're not going to need the sun to lighten the way. You're not going to need that old Jewish ruler to lighten the way, for Christ is going to be the lamp thereof. He's going to lighten the way. He's going to show us the way. He is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto my path. Right? He's the Son, S-U-N, of righteousness. That is what he's using here. This Isaiah's not even one that sets it up. It's set up in Genesis. Joseph sets it up. He's the one that has the initial dream, and it's understood right away it's metaphorical. Isaiah sets it up and defines it. I'm curious how this goes. The heavens are the rulers. I'm not sure which translations y'all are using, but you can see the language here in the King James and the American Standard. Hear, O heavens. Hear, ye rulers, in verse 10. Give ear, O earth. Give ear, ye people. Go over to Revelation chapter 21, verse 1. And this is what I hit y'all with. The very first thing y'all ever heard me teach long ago. And it most likely didn't sink in, because it was a lot different from anything you'd ever heard before. John said, this is kind of the summary. Chapter 20, chapter 21 are the summary of the book of Revelation. Chapter 21, verse 1, he's like, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. So let's think about this for a minute. If this is literal, because we always think this is literal. I grew up, I don't know, until some point in time, thinking, oh yeah, you just say, the heaven and earth are passed away. That's literal. When this is talking about the end of time, when heaven and earth pass away. But let's think about it for a second. Why are we getting a new one? If it's literal. If it's where God lives, if that's the heaven we're talking about here, why are we changing that one? That doesn't make any sense. Why are we getting a new heaven? Is he renovating? What's wrong with this place? Then like the drapes, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to make it literal. Is he talking about the atmosphere? Hey, I'm going to go through all this trouble to destroy the ball of dirt and the air around it, and then I'm going to put another one out. Well, he could, I guess, but it doesn't make any sense. Why would he do that? And I don't think anybody in the Church of Christ believes that. We don't think there will be another heaven and earth after this. We think that this is figurative. We're just not sure how to decode it. So if you make it literal, you're left thinking, you focus on the first part, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and all of a sudden you're left scratching your head. I don't know how to explain that. Why are we getting a new heaven and a new earth?
Could it be the thinking, new heaven and new earth, the thinking of the new heaven and the new earth?
But what are they?
Philosophy, the new,
But what are they defined? So in a way, I say absolutely. But literally, no. So you kind of have to define heaven and earth. So if something new is coming, Isaiah says it's the rulers and the people. There's more places that say, yes.
I've also heard before that somebody say that there's the new heaven, the new earth, and the new Jerusalem. And
That's
it's
verse
the
2.
people that believe that Jesus is going to come, that he's going to go to Jerusalem and do the 1,000-year reign.
Right.
I've heard that.
Right. But if that's all a new earth and he's going to put a new Jerusalem on there, it's just your mind has to crank away for that to be literal.
Right, and we also have the evidence of the promise that he made to Noah, that he said he would never curse the ground again, that he would never end earth again. And as long as earth was around, so would there be people, so would there be, and in that sense, he doesn't talk about bringing in a new earth. He just says that earth will continue and my people will continue.
He's not literally going to destroy the earth again like he did in the days of Moses. And he really, let's think about it, he didn't really even destroy the earth then. He destroyed the people on the earth, right?
No, yeah.
What did I say?
No.
Noah.
We knew. Right.
It's worse with my kids. Grayson, get out. I'm Trajan. Oh, whoops. Look at, everybody turn to Hebrews chapter 11. What is this chapter known for? This is a very famous chapter. Faith. This is a hall of faith. Hall of fame for the faith. But this chapter, while most of our lessons are from this chapter is a setup chapter for the next chapter. This is not the pinnacle. This chapter is not the climax of this point. He's been talking about these people, hey, they did this, by faith they did this. Go down to 35. They start going through this persecution. Some of the faithful of the Old Testament were going through this persecution. They had cruel mockings there in verse 36. They were stoned. They were sawn asunder. They were tempted. They were slain. Verse 38. Of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in the deserts and in mountains and dens. And these all, verse 39, I'll slow down a little here. These all obtained a good report through faith, received not the promise. They never got to see Christ and his kingdom. Okay? And we'll keep reading here. God having provided some better thing, a better covenant, a better system. That's what the whole book of Hebrews is about. You can go back and read the rest of it if you want to confirm what I'm saying. That they without us should not be made perfect. It's verse 40. And then we get into chapter 12. Now we're going to get to the point of chapter 11. You know chapter 11 very well. Everybody does. You've probably heard 20 plus sermons on that chapter. But that's not the point. The point is chapter 12. Wherefore, seeing we are also compassed about with so great a cloud. We are, just like they were, we are going through this same stuff. All of this negative, this persecution there in the first century. We're going through it too. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us. Let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame. Endure, resist until death. Resist sin. Don't cave into this. He goes on and on. He starts talking about verse 6 for several verses. He's talking about you're going through this rebuke. You're going through this straightening up. You're going through this, you better get right with God. This is like a father who's getting after his boys. Spanking his kids, whatever. They're being rebuked. And that should be a good thing. He's saying that should be a good thing. A father who loves his kids will do that. Get right, man. Start doing what's right. And he's saying it's so much better that your spiritual father is doing it to you. And he says in verse 12, wherefore lift up the hands, make strong the hands which hang down, and the feeble knees. Which is a quote from the book of Isaiah. And make straight the paths for your feet. Verse 14, follow peace with all men. Look diligently. Verse 15, lest there be any fornicator, profane person. Verse 17, for ye know how that afterwards, when we would have inherited the blessing, he was rejected. For he found no place of repentance, though he sought it carefully with tears. So here's the point. Now, here's the point. And this is going to confirm what I'm saying here. For ye are not come unto the mount, the kingdom, to the mount that might be touched. You're not coming to a kingdom that can be removed, destroyed, touched. You Christians there in the first century, you're not coming to that. And that burned with fire, nor unto blackness and darkness and tempest, and the sound of a trumpet, and the voice of words, which were the voice that they heard, entreated that the word should not be spoken to them any more. Verse 20, for they could not endure that which was commanded, and if so much as a beast touched the mountain, it should be stoned, or thrust through with a dart. And so terrible was the sight that Moses said, I exceedingly fear and quake. You're not coming to that old law kingdom. You're not coming to physical, literal Judah and Jerusalem. My kingdom is not of this world. So what did we come to? So he's sitting there talking about Old Testament, Old Testament, Old Testament. You are not come to that. For ye are come unto Mount Sion and unto the city of the living God. You'll see that in Revelation 21:2. The heavenly Jerusalem, the spiritual Jerusalem. And to the innumerable company of angels, messengers, us, to the general assembly and the church of Christ. Yours might say church of the firstborn. What do y'all's translations say?
Firstborn.
Church of the firstborn. You have come to this Mount Sion, this new Jerusalem, this new city. You've come to the church of Christ. You've not come to this old kingdom. You've come to the new kingdom, the new spiritual kingdom that is not of this world, the house not made with hands. And you've come, verse 24, and you've come to Jesus, the mediator of what? The new covenant. We're talking Christianity. We're talking about the New Testament here. We're talking about the Church of Christ. And the blood of sprinkling that speaketh better things than that of Abel. See that you refuse not him that speaketh, for they escaped not who refused him that spake on earth. Much more shall not we escape if we turn away from him that speaketh from heaven. Now watch, went through all of that to get to these 3 verses. Whose voice then shook the earth. Don't let your mind go literal here. Whose voice then shook the earth. But now he hath promised, saying, Yet once more I shake not the earth only, but also the heavens. And this word, but he explains what he's saying. He explains, the Hebrew writer here, explains the metaphor. Yet once more, this word, this shaking of the heavens and earth, it signifieth the removing of the things that are shaken. He's removing the first heaven and first earth were being removed. They were passing away. So that those things which cannot be shaken remain. What cannot be shaken? The Church of Christ. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2. Also, remember, the wise man built his house upon the rock. It's not going to be shaken. That's the church. Somebody read Isaiah 2:2 for me real quick.
In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and all nations will stream to it.
The Gentiles are going to be a part of the Church of Christ. In the last days of the Jews, the Church of Christ was going to be established, and the Gentiles would be able to be a part of it. It's pretty plain. The church here, this mountain, is the Church of Christ, the General Assembly and Church of the Firstborn. That's what we have come to. Them. Now, we're also in it, but when I say we, that's what he's saying there. So I'm going to read 27 again, and then I'm going to read 28. And this word, the shaking of the earth and the heavens, yet once more signifieth the removing of those things that are shaken as of things that are made, that these things which cannot be shaken may remain. He had to get rid of the old system, the old covenant, Judaism, so that Christianity could take its place. That's what he's talking about. Wherefore, we receiving a kingdom. They were in the process. The church was established on Pentecost, 30 AD. And then they go for 40 years getting the new instructions. That's when the apostles are out doing their work. Teaching, spreading the word, writing the New Testament. They were setting up. That is their wilderness wandering. When they came up out of Egypt, Israel was founded, more or less. But they didn't know every single thing they were supposed to do, right? They were just this new nation. And then they go through the wilderness wandering, getting everything set up. After 40 years of this transition from the patriarchal age to the Mosaical age, they come out, now they're ready to go. They cross the Jordan. And it still took them a while after that. They weren't just, bam, we have this whole piece of land. They had to go out and get all of it. And if you read 1 Corinthians chapter 10, it says exactly what I'm saying. They say, hey, you remember back then when Moses and them were under the cloud and they were going through all this trouble and everything? Just like they were going through in their transition, we now today are going through this transition. The apostles in the first century. We should stop saying we, because we aren't going through it. They were going through that transition. Your heavens and earth here represent Judaism. The leaders of Sodom and Gomorrah, which had been destroyed 1,000 years earlier, he's calling them, that's the second metaphor, and we'll get to that more in verse 9. That's the second metaphor in this verse. Hear, O heavens, hear ye rulers of Sodom. Give ear, O people, you people of Gomorrah, ye rulers and people of Judah and Jerusalem. What does verse 1 say? What is the book about? Judah and Jerusalem. This heavens and earth represent Judaism. The old law. They were in the old touchable Mount Sinai, but we have come to the new Jerusalem, the city of the living God, the general assembly and church of Christ, or church of the firstborn. I had to shake up the old system, which means remove, so that the new church could take its place. You couldn't have Judaism and Christianity running parallel. That's what this means. You plug this in here, it makes a whole lot more sense. Because you're talking about getting rid of the harlot, Jerusalem, which we're going to spend a whole lot of time on next week. Do not miss next week's class. It's the most important one of the whole time I'm going to be in here. And then after we get rid of the harlot, the chapter after, this chapter, is the bride. And follow your cross-references there in Revelation 21. It takes you back to the Old Testament, links to a prophecy every single time about the coming of the church and the Christian age. It's the bride. He literally says in verse 2, 9, and 10, come here, look at the bride, the Lamb's wife. I'm going to show you the bride, the Lamb's wife. Nobody in here gets that wrong. Everybody knows the bride is the church. Every denomination knows the bride is the church. But all of a sudden when we read Revelation chapter 21, our mind short circuits and we think it's not talking about the bride. Because we've heard so many jokes about the pearly gates, we've been told all our lives, this is talking about heaven at the end of time. It's not. It's not. This thing is coming down, read verse 2 of Revelation 21, coming down from God out of heaven. I'm not going to write it. Can heaven come out of itself? It makes no sense. But if it's the bride, the church, the spiritual kingdom being delivered to the earth, it makes a lot of sense. Don't let your mind all of a sudden make the bride something else. It's the new heavens and the new earth. It's the new system where Christ is the Son of righteousness. He, later on in chapter 21, would be the light thereof. They're not going to have need for that. The new heavens and the new earth are Christianity. The old heavens and the old earth are Judaism, the rulers and the people. And by the way, you can compare this. I kind of went messier as like, this is like, I can almost read, and this is doctor level.
I need that aspirin now.
You laughed at my dumb joke. I'm not even going to go off on the sea. We will cover that extensively. I am not going to get through this. That's my 15-minute warning. We started late because of the technical
Are we
difficulties.
still on the first slide?
No,
No, we're on the second.
second slide.
Two, you made it through two.
We're about to
We're
rapid fire.
now.
We're about to rapid fire until we get to 21.
Okay.
Okay?
Hey, there's an interesting possible point of harmonization here. I'm not going to belabor it, but there's, like, if you were in the class that I did on the Council of God, the Deuteronomy 32:8 view and Psalm 82, like the whole, what was going on outside of Judah and Jerusalem, there is this whole setup that God chose to rule Jacob and Israel himself and has left the rest of the world as sons of God. The rulers might also be a relate to that. It doesn't exclude Judaism, but that might be a cross-link. If you happen to be in my class for that.
I would have to come to that to comment.
Sure.
Because I'm not 100%, but there are instances where other societies have their own sun, moon, and stars.
Yes.
Okay, it's not, it's just this specific one is Judaism because it's following verse 1 about Judah and Jerusalem.
Got it.
There are other nations that have their own sun, moon. We'll get to it in Isaiah 13. Babylon has theirs. Okay? The sea, if we're literal, I don't really want to spend a lot of time on this, but go back. If it's literal and we're getting rid of the sea, or if we're getting rid of the earth, why do we have to make a special statement that there was no more sea? We're getting rid of the earth. Of course there's not going to be a sea. Why is that there? It means something very, very specific. Do y'all want the answer now? I'm not going to prove it now, but because that's the whole back half of the class, is the sea. Think of your analogy. The earth is your people, your kingdom. The Gentiles were considered the islands, the people of the sea, the nations from afar. They were not allowed to be a part of the earth under the old system.
So to comment, I'm just throwing this out, would it be because there will be no more dividing of people?
100%. 100% correct. The veil is removed. That mystery of the Gentiles being able to be in the kingdom would be revealed to everybody. There's no more separation. The island nations from afar would now... I'm not going to prove this now, but it is the back half of Isaiah. We're just not there yet. Okay? We'll get there. Let's fly through this till verse 21 and then we'll be done. And verse 21 is fun. We will spend the whole day on verse 21. It is really the end of the class because the whole thing in here is we're studying Revelation. We're trying to figure out who the harlot is. You're going to get the answer in the beginning. And you will leave this class, you'll be like, yeah, there's no way it's not Judah and Jerusalem. There's no way. I have slide after slide after slide after slide linking the harlot to Judah and Jerusalem. Go read Jeremiah 3 if you want to get prepared. So what's going on? He's saying, hear, O heavens, give ear, O earth. It's a negative thing. They're not being good. They don't know their master. Verse 2, they rebelled against God. Verse 3, they don't know their master. They were a sinful nation. They were provoking God to anger. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. They're going to do it more and more. Now, we're constantly going to be addressing the when. Because the Jews were pretty much bad the whole time. Not 100% of the time, but they were bad back then. They were bad in the first century. They were bad all the time. So it's hard to pinpoint just based on these verses. That's what we're setting out to do. And you've got other guys that you can read, not just dumb old Court Lawrence, who has just Bible and no internet training from when I was little. But you have Jerome. He didn't have the internet either, by the way. They think that chapter 1 and chapter 2 are about the first century and the destruction of Jerusalem at the hand of the Romans and the transition to Christianity. I'm not the only one. Verse 7, your country is desolate. Judah and Jerusalem, and this is that future perfect tense that Tom was bringing up a couple of weeks ago over there.
I think it's called prophetic perfect.
Prophetic perfect.
Yeah, I messed it up there. I mean to correct it, but
Okay. So it hasn't happened yet. They're not desolate when he's saying this, but it's saying it's a done deal. It's for sure happening in the future. You burn with fire, your land, Judah and Jerusalem, strangers are going to devour it. Gentiles. It is desolate. Assyria is going to attack them. They're going to go into Babylonian captivity. Israel falls. All of these things happen. They kind of fit this mold. But we're going to get into this type-antitype. Remember that. It's very strong in here. Sodom and Gomorrah is a type Judah and Jerusalem follows after that pattern. He sets it up constantly. Hey, you know this nation? They're the type, you're the antitype. You're just like them. You do what they do. Type, antitype. You find it in baptism. Them going through the Red Sea. That's baptism. That is a type of baptism, whereas our baptism is the antitype. It follows after that pattern. Naaman dipping in the Jordan 7 times. That is a type. Our baptism is specifically there to illustrate what we do. We go down into the water, we come up, and we're cleansed from leprosy. And by leprosy, I mean sin. Had Naaman not done that, he would not have been cleansed of his sin. That's type, antitype. It's a very strong theme in the book of Isaiah. This is all setting up, all of these precursors are setting up the ultimate event of the destruction of Judah and Jerusalem. The removing of the heavens and earth so that Christianity could come in, so that Christianity could blossom. And remember the very first verse I showed you, Isaiah 62:3, so that the world could see, oh wow, Christianity came out of this. Their God is the true God. It's not the Jews. The Jews' God forsook them because they coupled Christianity and Judaism together. They thought it was all just parts of Judaism fighting. Well, Christians emerged victorious from this Roman-Jewish war, and the whole world saw it. And then everybody starts converting to Christianity over the next couple of centuries. Matthew 23, your house is left unto you desolate. Your house, your country, is left unto you desolate. Isaiah is predicting the fall of Judaism, the permanent fall of Judaism, not to the Assyrians, that's in here, not to the Babylonians, that's in here. He's not concerned with those. Those are a temporary, hey, you got to get right, guys. We've got to get to Christ. But the Song of Moses, Deuteronomy 28 through 32, is fulfilled in Matthew chapter 24, the book of Revelation, the destruction of Judah and Jerusalem. We should have been as Sodom. Here he goes with this type, antitype. Sodom is the type. We, Jews, should have been as Sodom. In Revelation 11:8, he says, that great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. The great city is debated because the great city is believed to be the harlot. And that's the whole point of the class, is figure out who the harlot is. Most theories say that the great city in Revelation 11 and the great harlot are the same entity being talked about. I agree. But there's no other city in the Bible that is ever called Sodom. And do you know how many times Judah and Jerusalem are called Sodom? A lot. A lot. That's what my wife would say. They're called Sodom all the time. Just do a word search for Sodom, and anything after Genesis, it's basically calling the Jews Sodom. That's an easy thing to figure out, and it's going to be in there more than once or twice. I put a few up. There's a lot more than that. I just got tired of typing that, because you can go, this is easy. You can go find that out for yourself. And I'll get to that in a second. What is the harlot? Is it Jerusalem? I say it's Jerusalem. Is it Rome? Because a lot of people will tell you it's Rome. Rome is in there. Rome is for sure in the book of Revelation. It's not the harlot. It's other metaphors in there. Is it Berlin? Is it USA? I watched a Jewish Christian guy last night on YouTube because I'm trying to learn more theories for y'all that are not this. And he kept going off on, well, is the USA, you know, it's gonna depart. It's gonna be all nations against. I'm not sure if the USA is gonna side with Israel when this big war comes, because it's gonna be Russia and Persia and they're all coming. Because they take stuff literal. He's looking for a literal 1,000-year reign of Christ in physical, literal Jerusalem. Remember those 4 points I had up here last week? Self-centered. He says it's happening now. They mess up the 1,000 years. They're looking for an earthly kingdom. And what was my fourth point? I can't even remember the fourth point. Anybody remember? Isaiah is calling the Jews spiritual Sodom. We'll get to the Egypt part later. I've already kind of mentioned it a couple of times. And also, if you read the rest of 11 verse 8, it says, and the city where our Lord was crucified. Christ was crucified in Jerusalem, just outside the city limits, but in Jerusalem, not in Rome. It's kind of easy to figure out because they're sitting there looking at the temple, doing all of this stuff with the temple. That's not a Roman temple, that's Solomon's temple, or the later version of it. Except the Lord of hosts left us a very small remnant, we would have been like unto Sodom and Gomorrah. Romans says this is talking about the first century. Paul is saying, hey, remember when Isaiah said this? Remember I told you it's easy to figure out what these guys are talking, what Isaiah's talking about? Because the New Testament constantly comes in and says, remember when Isaiah said this? Remember when Isaiah said this? It's happening now. This is the fulfillment of that verse in Isaiah. He cries out concerning Israel, though the number of the sons of Israel may be like the sand of the sea, only the remnant will be saved. If the Lord of armies had not left us descendants, remnants, we would have become like Sodom and would have been like unto Gomorrah. Does that sound familiar? This is Paul in Romans in the New Testament time. This is not Isaiah. They're saying the exact same thing. He's even saying, I'm quoting Isaiah. This is happening now. In the same way then, in the type, antitype, there has also come to be, at the present time, at Paul's time, a remnant, the Christians. They were going to be saved in this big judgment of the harlot, in this big transition from Judaism to Christianity. You can go through Romans 9:22 through 33. Go through that on your own. I'll, for sake of time, with our late start, I'll let you go through it on your own. Isaiah 1:9, Romans 22 through 33, it's the same stuff. Isaiah was preparing them for the transition in the first century. Daniel talks about it. Their home would be consumed. That Israel, Judah and Jerusalem would be consumed. The Christians, the remnant, would be saved. What is that? Romans 9:28, the end of they would finish the work. They would finish off Judaism. They would finish the end of the age. Matthew 24, they're looking at the temple and they say, hey, when is the end of that temple? When is the temple going to be destroyed? And when is the end of the age? Don't use the King James there. It says end of the world, and that's a bad translation. When is the end of the age? Most of your Bibles should have the word age. Hold on. If you be obedient, you would get a bunch of good stuff. From the land. It's not talking about the end of the world. Okay? That's all I wanted to point out on that one. Because if you're obedient and then the end of the world comes, you're not getting anything from the land. Right? It's just not end of the world stuff, because a lot of people think it's end of the world. Just trust me on that one. I'm not going to get any explain the premillennialists and the postmillennialists and all that and the rapture. But in a lot of those versions, if you're obedient, you're taken away. Okay? And I don't want to get into that because it's not right. We'll get to the harlot. It's going to be good, guys. It's going to be good. The harlot, the next 10, 15 slides are fantastic. You got any questions? I do not have to go to a football game. David, would you lead us in a closing prayer, please?